Hey, everyone out there in podcast land, welcome to the next exciting episode of Lending Leadership with the Mortgage Pros. Robert Filyaw here with Tom Mills and Dave Holland. What's up, fellas? How are we?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm rocking the backwards hat today because I need my wig busted. I need my haircut, so gonna go a little informal today.
That's all right. We don't always keep this thing formal.
More often than not, it's the exact opposite of formal, right?
What are we talking about today, Robert?
I'm so glad you asked, David. Today, we're going to be talking about going from loan officer to leader, what that looks like, and probably more importantly, what no one tells you about that transition, what it looks like, and where some of the pitfalls are, what some of the challenges are. We've all done that, right? We've all originated and then moved into leadership roles, and it's not always exactly what you think it's going to be. That's fair to say?
Well, I think the first thing I'll say to that is I don't know. Nobody should think that that's the next step in order to advance your career. It doesn't have to happen. You don't have to lead loan officers. I've heard people say that before. I've done this so long, I have to take this step. You don't.
You absolutely don't.
First and foremost, because if you're not doing it for the right reasons, you're probably not going to do it right and probably not going to succeed at it, quite frankly.
Yeah, everyone wants to be a manager at some point, to get out of loans because it can be tough. But it's dealing with personalities and LOs can be even more challenging. And not everyone has the right temperament or personality for it. Let's be real about that.
I would make the argument that 90% of top producing LOs, which is usually who tries to make this leap, don't have the temperament and aren't the right people for it. And honestly, guys, when we've talked a lot about a severe lack of leadership in our industry, that may be why, because we're trying to take people with, high levels of production and fit them into this leadership piece. And it's not a natural fit for them.
Yeah, they're going to work on their loans first because a lot of people are producing branch managers, right? So they have a raging pipeline. They got LOs coming at them for questions, needing help on files. And what are they going to work on first? Their own stuff, their own fires generally. So it's tough. It's tough to do both.
Yeah. And I think, Robert, you said it may be. I think it is why there's a lack of leadership in our industry. I don't think it may be. I think it's the primary reason why. You're absolutely right. Tend to be top producers. And, I think what it is, leaders don't necessarily have to be managers or leaders of people. I mean, there's peers that are leaders amongst the sales force, amongst groups that we've been in that don't manage people, but amongst their peers, they're a leader. How they represent, how they speak, they're brilliant, the ideas, how they share. That doesn't mean that they should even, manage people because, managing people, being responsible for people, or, even when you shift your world of your whole livelihood and well-being, being responsible, other people and what they're able to do when you if you ever shift out of production, it's another world.
It's hard to get back in production too. Sorry, Robert. It's hard to get. Once you step out of that world, it's hard to get back into it and get your referral partners back and your customers and your realtors. It's difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like a trap, right? Like thinking that because you can close loans really well and you're a top producer, the mindset is that equates to you can lead people and to do the same. And it's not like leadership is not an extension of production. It's a completely different mindset and a completely different way of going about everything. And I think to do it really, Dave, you've done a good job, honestly, of being able to retain your production while having the leadership piece. Like when I moved away from it, I couldn't have done both. Or what would have happened is I would have been mediocre at both, and I wouldn't have excelled at one or the other. And I think that sometimes, is that really what you want? That's almost a disservice to one side or the other of the business, right? The other thing, just real quickly, is the juice isn't typically worth the squeeze. Like, how many top producing originators do you guys know that have moved into that leadership role and they actually go backwards in income? Because the reality in most cases is that override that they're going to make, it's going to take 10 deals to close in that leadership role to equal one of their deals to close on their own. Like it doesn't equate. So when you first, Tom, when you got out of originating and stepped over into the leadership side, what do you remember? It's been a long time for you. Do you remember what caught you off guard most? What was most surprising to you?
I can't even say that because I had a little different path. I was leading a team 2 years in the business, so I can't say like I was a top producer. Absolutely. 2 years into the business when I started doing that, but I was that peer leader, right? That I literally had that who's coming with me moment. I'm going to go start a team. And then I did. But I was that peer leader that I didn't know at all how to be a leader. I knew I was always a natural leader, sports teams, just, kind of there. But what I learned is like being a natural leader doesn't mean you're naturally a good leader and there's a difference between somebody that's a trained, educated leader and somebody that's just like has these natural tendencies.
You were just confident, Tom.
I was extremely confident. Yeah. And guys, it wasn't until
cocky.
Halfway through my career that I started really, like, not that I started figuring out how to be a better leader, but that I started figuring out there was better ways to figure out how to be a better leader. And I went and saw coaching and I went and saw development into that. I was always really critical and things like that. And I would shift my mentality. I will tell you, like the biggest thing that kind of caught me off guard, and you have to learn to be really, I think, a great leader is when you're a loan originator or your income's tied to sales, you're in a bind, just go grind. You know what I mean? I got to work extra hours. I got to make extra more calls. I got to do, and it's really actually, that's the beautiful thing about being a loan officer. Like you can dig out really, really fast because you're in full control of that. Go work twice as much, go make twice as many calls, make twice as many offers, you get twice as many deals. That stuff was always easy mindset to me. It took me a while to understand that I did in fact have the same impact as a leader. I did. It's just so much smaller. And it's so, you have to do it so much more consistently, and you don't see it like that. It's not like you just put in this week and then there's the results.
It's a slower burn.
It's a slower burn, but you build a culture and you realize like you are impacting this, you are encouraging these people, you are creating an atmosphere that people are learning, that they're learning from one another, that people are thriving, that you are building that culture of competitiveness and collaboration, and you see the fruits of that labor, but it takes a while. I remember going through times when, I'm in one of those, like I gotta dig out, I gotta make some money, and I couldn't turn it real fast, because I'd moved out of production at that point and, just moved back,
Something that surprised me, and don't take this the wrong way, LOs out there on podcast land, is we are a bunch of demanding assholes sometimes, right? It didn't click for me, and I was the same way, right? I was tough. I was tough on my managers. I was tough on my processors and underwriters, and until you're actually managing people, you don't realize how demanding, especially top performing loan officers, can be. So when you want to manage LOs, be careful what you wish for, because
be ready.
It can be tough. It can be tough.
It's funny that you say that, Dave. We have someone on our ops, a leader on our operations side, who worked with me when I was an originator. She was an underwriter when I was an originator, and now she's a leader in our operations side. And obviously, I'm a leader at the company, and she's told me this. She hated me when I was an originator, could not stand me because I was an arrogant asshole. And now I'm, not completely different, but a lot different. And it's just completely a different, mindset of that originator versus leader. So yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that.
Well, I've mellowed so much from 10, 15 years ago, even 5 years ago, I've mellowed because I know how to control situations better. I know how to solve. Yeah. But then I feel it's, the processor's pain, the underwriter's pain. I get it because I see it from both sides now. So managing an operations team, managing LOs is not for the I think a lot of people who want to be a manager, you should really take a hard look at yourself and take some sort of personality profile test to see if it's in your character, because it's not for everyone.
Yeah. Don't try to make yourself that. And what do you guys, let's talk about that. What do you guys think are some of the characteristics of somebody that makes them, like, maybe says they're destined for being a leader? What do let's throw a couple of things around. Like, first thing that comes to mind is, you have to put others first.
I was going to say, like, to me, leadership is about service, right? Yeah. We talk about leaders eat last, servant leadership. Like, you have to, let's be honest, right? As originators, there's a fair amount of ego in this business, and being the top producer, and we want to be the Scotsman's guy. I was the number one producer. Like, my name was number one on the list at every company that I worked at when I was originating, right? And when you make that shift, you have to be able to check that and kind of tuck it away. And now it's about helping those in your charge get on that list and building them and growing them. And that's not an easy task for everybody.
You need to check your ego at the door. You really do. The three of us talk about that a lot. And I think we're all good at it most of the time, but sometimes, it flares up. But yeah, you got to check your ego at the door, because if both the LO and the manager come in hot with an ego and agenda, that's not going to be a good call.
It's going to be fisticuffs.
Yes.
What do you always say, Dave? Stay humble, stay hungry.
Yes.
Is that what you're always preaching to us?
Stay humble, stay hungry.
Get a little full of ourselves.
Yeah.
It really comes down to relationships. I mean, honestly, guys, I mean, I think the three of us are good leaders, right? But take the relationships that we have, that we've formed, that we rely on every day, that really make us good leaders, and have the team that we have, and we're not great leaders all of a sudden, So I think it comes down to, I think when you look at originators that end up going to leadership, what did they lead their assistant like, or assistants like, were they, I would venture to say that if they don't do a good job of leading that, you're probably not going to really do a good job of leading originators, because it's, it's still leading people, motivating people, inspiring people, and sometimes it's tough as originator, because, your assistant's grinding, and sometimes you're on the golf course. So, they have to see you, they have to see that you're working, they have to respect, they have to know the hustle, know the work that you put in, look up to you in that sense, because you probably, it'll transition over when you go to managing people too. The doing versus delegating. Let's focus on the word empowerment. Since we talk about that a lot, because I think that's a big thing in becoming a leader. Some people know how to do things, they don't know how to teach people, empower people to do a thing. I think there's a little couple minute piece there that we have.
Guys, one of the other things that I think is we talk about, kind of some of the unforeseen challenges and things that maybe aren't thought about is it's just the difference from, as an LO being kind of in control of everything, right? Like it's all about you. And just like you said, Tom, if you needed to go out and grind, you could, and like you were kind of in control of it, where as you move into that leadership, you're not as in control as everything. You have to delegate a little bit. You have to lean onto other people and be able to, kind of let go and count on them. That can be challenging for top producers, or for any producer, really.
Yeah, when you're so used to depending on yourself and yourself only, or your immediate staff, to then put your trust in a half a dozen or a dozen LOs, that's definitely a mind shift for sure.
Yeah, I think that's what comes back to that service leadership too, right? Like if you have the right mindset, then you'll sow into them, and it's more about helping them grow, and not as, you don't mind giving it up as much, almost, if that makes sense.
You're not looking at the big picture. I mean, if you have that, like, I can do this quicker myself mentality, you're not having a big picture towards where you want your business to go. Because yes, you can absolutely get that done quicker, I'm sure, but what is that really doing? How are you making that person feel? Are you empowering them? Are you teaching them? And then, as you may have done it quicker that one time, what about the next 100 times? And if you had to hold it with the one time, empower somebody to take that over, you then didn't do it. You saved a lot of time, and people don't look into that, and that has to come into like the pride in developing people. And then when you develop them, you empower them, and you see you see how people rise up when they're given that, when they receive that trust from their leadership and feel empowered. That's when you really get people to kind of, really, really rise above for you and really go above and beyond.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Tom. I was literally right before this on a call with a team who has just brought on a new loan partner, and we're working on some training and development and some leadership of that loan partner and them letting go of some stuff and delegating. And the conversation that I had is I said, guys, this isn't flipping a light switch. We're going to work on a 60-day window to go from where you're at now to where we're talking about the end goal is going to be. And what I need you to understand is you're going to work harder and put more time in the next 60 days than you would if you just did it yourself. That's the absolute fact, because training and development takes time and energy and effort. However, when we get to the back of this 60 days, the time freedom that it's going to give you, it's an investment. It's going to be well worth it for the long term.
And back to our earlier point, some people just aren't cut out for it. Some people want to be a solo LO, no team, right? Some people want to process their own loans.
A lot of people should do that too, though, Dave. Like,
yeah, no doubt. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong.
I've had LOs come to me and say, "Hey, I want to take the next step. I want LOs under me," and I've challenged them. Like, let's talk about what you're actually asking for. Like, let's really look at it to see if this is really what you want. And more times than not, when we talk through it, they're like, "Yeah, I think I'm good. I think I'm going to stay." That's not trying to dissuade them, but the reality is, if that's truly what you want, I couldn't dissuade you, right? Like, it would be your path, and it's your path. I do think that when I think your why comes a lot of this, right? And this is maybe a different side of this conversation. Why would you do this? Why would you go from being a originator to a top producer? And I think that comes down to the why. Are you trying to build something bigger than yourself?
And let's be clear in this conversation. If you want to go from LO to a leader, don't have the mindset either I'm going to make more money right out of the gate, because you'll probably make less money.
Yep.
You're not going to work less. It's not a place to go hide at and, duck out and work less. You're probably going to work more. It's probably going to be more demanding in some cases. So for people looking to duck out and work less and make more money, that's usually not the case, especially at first.
What about those instances where you transition from an originator to a leader, and now you're leading your peers? You went from being one of the guys to now you're the quote unquote boss, right? Like, that can be a challenge.
It can be a little sticky, especially if if they were direct competitors, or they don't respect you, or if you're younger. That can be a little tricky. I mean, we've all done it.
That's been me my whole career. When I started a team, it was guys that was my peers, and it was friends, and I brought friends into the business, and everybody we work with, I'm friends now. And I think it's actually it's a really easy divide. You have to be consistent. You have to be who you are. You have to be you have to be clear and honest, and then you can communicate with people, and even though they're your friends, they understand it's business, and you can separate it a little bit. But is that what you were getting at? Like
I think it's probably the greatest. I don't know if example is the right word, but the greatest time when check your ego at the door is probably most proficient, right? Because if you let that title go to your head and you try to lead because you're the boss instead of lead out of transparency and consistency and really trying to influence and help grow whoever you're leading, if you have that ego, it's going to blow up in your face. It's not going to work well. One thing
really bad
that I've always tried, I heard a long time ago, and I've always tried to lean into, we talk about a manager or a leader. This is something that I was told and it stuck with me. Processes, things are managed, right? People are led. And I've always taken that away and have kind of reverted back to that. Like, if you almost never hear me say manager, I'll say they're managing the pipeline. They're managing the closing process. They're leading the processors. They're leading the closers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big difference in mindset.
So one question when you transition from LO into management, what's one mistake leaders make when they're managing their former peers or friends? Like what's something that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I can think of a couple of examples where I've seen this, and it's, maybe not even in the lending world. I've seen it in the real estate world. It's where you're competing against those in your charge. Maybe you're cherry picking leads that come in and taking the best for yourself. There's an agent that you and whoever you're leading are both, trying to go and get. Like, you have to backseat yourself in those situations as a leader, honestly. And if you aren't in a position where you can do that yet, you're probably not ready to leave, frankly, is my thought on it. But that's a big mistake that I've seen people make.
I think a big mistake that people make is because they're friends with somebody. Let's say you have a team, 10 people, or close friends with 2. You tend to tell them things that they shouldn't really be privy to, and then comments are made, and then people feel like you're not really as confidential about their personal information or things like that. I've seen that blow up with teams before, where because people are kind of buddy, they let people know other people's business. And that's really,
you're not being consistent. You're playing favorites.
yeah.
People feel that. You may not even realize you're doing, but people can feel that. And that can be a disaster culturally.
It can be not even, what Tom said is a major thing, but it could be something as simple as accountability, right? Like, you have a different level of standard and accountability to one of the originators that you ride harder because maybe they're not as close than you do for someone else, right? Like, that consistency in leadership is pretty key.
Yeah.
You just don't want to make, you don't want to make, you can be a leader without making people feel like you're above them.
Yes.
It has to be terms like we and, the team, and you have to show and embody that. But, you have to really, you have to really learn how to, be with your team, in one sense, and not above them, but it sometimes realize that this isn't really pertain to them, and keep things separate.
You do a really good job of that, Millsy. And honestly, when I first met you, that was one of the concerns. Like, that was just a feeling that I had, but one of those things where I was wrong. You do a really good job of being on the level and, not positioning yourself above. So kudos to you for that.
But in the same respect, if I could, you got to hold the line on some stuff with LOs, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Or you'll get run over by your team.
When you're not flexing like you're above, holding the line becomes a whole lot easier. It's just some mutual respects there. It's like, hey, man.
I think it goes back to the consistency also, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're not doing this because I said to do it. You're doing it because this is the positive impact it's going to have on your business. Let me show you and teach you why. Like, let me explain it to you. That's one of the things. Like, check your ego at the door, right? Like, if you're going to do this because I said to do it, absolutely not. Like, as you guys as originators, have you ever had a leader said, you're going to do this because I said to do it? That's the last thing I'm going to do at that point.
Yeah.
Right. Explain to me why I should do it and how it's going to help and impact my business, and you'll get the buy-in 100 times. Check your ego at the door. So you've got that. You're an originator, or maybe you're a manager and you've got that originator that is dead set that this is the shift they want to make. This is their next chapter. What are some tips to put out there to make sure that they do that successfully? The actual shift, the transition. What have you guys seen that works really well? And maybe the flip side, what, as that transition happens, what hasn't worked?
Instead of saying, I want to build my team and I want to have 10 people, think about, what do you want your team to look like? And what are the type of people that you want to manage? What are the type of people that you're committed to serving and that you believe are going to contribute to the culture that either you already have maybe amongst your small team, you and your assistants, complement that culture, but not hurt that culture. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think what I saw people, they get so fixated on, I have to recruit, and they bring people in that, they don't bring anything additional to, even if they bring production or revenue. You had this vision that you wanted your team to look like this, and those two people you just brought in do nothing to meet that vision, and that relationship is probably not going to be what you want it to be. It's when you hire great people and people that this is the profile of person I want to help. This is the way I want them to come. I want them to be focused on their careers, committed to their family. When you hire the right people, leading is a lot easier. I will absolutely say that it is a lot easier to lead committed people, driven people, goal-oriented, people that want to be the best they can be in their life. It's kind of easy to lead them, really.
No question. And we have a rule that we joke about. We don't hire assholes, right? But but to Tom's point, committed LOs who are students of their crafts, that every day they're trying to get better. Those are easy people to manage and to work with. They're a pleasure. They're a pleasure to work with, right?
Absolutely.
We covered some of the stuff, Robert. Check your ego at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared to work longer hours, make less money. No, I'm drawing
one thing we didn't touch on yet that I want to touch on. Like, you have to be really vulnerable and open to feedback and adjust and grow and change from it. Leadership's not for the weak, guys. You can't, sometimes it's going to punch you between the eyes. You can't lead in a vacuum. You've got to be open to criticism, and you got to be receptive to it and look for ways to get better from it. And that's not always that's something I've struggled with, on my journey as a leadership, is the criticism and actually taking it to heart and figuring out how I could become better and how I could learn and grow from it.
I also think have a leader you admire and you look up to, because if you don't, who you trying to measure to? Who are you? And you don't even have to know that role model, that person to be a role model. Maybe you do, but if you do, that's amazing, because you should learn from them, and take what you learn and be a sponge to that.
I like it. All good stuff, guys. Let's wrap this one up. Good session. I think a lot of good content out there. So, we talked about the skills that make you the great LO aren't necessarily the skills that make you a great leader. And frankly, just top producing LOs, the next step in your career, probably the next best step is probably not being a leader. And that's okay. Right. That's cool. Servant leadership, check your ego at the door. Some big takeaways that I have. What are some of the biggest takeaways you guys have?
You stole all of them, Robert.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, checking your ego at the door, listening more, listening to your LOs and your operations staff, taking constructive criticism in a positive way, always learning, reading, growing, coaching, getting the coach really helps.
And I'll go to your quote, Robert, manage processes, lead people.
I've lived by that for a long time. So everyone out there in podcast land, thanks for joining in on this episode of Lending Leadership with the Mortgage Pros. Hey, if you have made the jump into leadership and have a lesson that you've learned along the way, share it with us. We'd love to hear about it. Or if maybe you're thinking about getting into leadership and you have questions or, want to talk more about it, hit us up. We'd love to chat with you. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to us so you don't miss an episode. For Dave Holland and Tom Mills, Robert Phil, y'all here. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.